Oh my god.
Hamish.
Hey!
Oh.
Tripp. Hamish, Tripp. How does it feel to win an RTN, Hamish?
Oh, I mean, it feels great. But don't ask me, Tripp. How does it feel to win an RTN?
It feels great to win an RTN, Hamish. Simon, how does it feel to win an RTN?
It feels really good, gents.
Yeah. Literally
so
one after
natural.
It is. It is one after the other because oh no, actually no, mine was Saturday. I thought mine was Sunday for some reason. But yeah, hey! Awesome.
We did it, chaps. We qualified for nationals.
Oh, we certainly
in
did.
the best way possible, I guess. We're actually winning, right?
We're going back to nationals, boys.
Oh.
Yeah, which is looking like it's pretty tight, right? Like there's I think it's confirmed now, 96 places for pretty much every nationals.
Seem to be.
Which, considering the growth of the game, means it's a lot more competitive.
Oh.
It was pretty competitive last year, and it's even more competitive this year. So it's really good that we all get to go.
It kind of was like last year. Like just to sort of, I think in that space it probably felt like it was pretty competitive. But like compared to now, I think a lot of us even just turned around and there was a lot more people relaxed on their XP. Like I was, I couldn't get into a top 4. I was on the first page, and I really was not sweating, and I didn't even attend that many armories just because of my personal situation.
Yeah,
my events just saw me through. This time round, there was literally no chance I was getting in with the way I accumulate XP. So it was a good job.
The density of players at the top of the leaderboard.
Oh yeah,
and the skill level has gone up incredibly since last year.
Absolutely. The like this time last year, like honestly, keep your eyes peeled. And I think this is actually probably global, right? The landscape globally is just going to be different from last year. But we can only speak on the UK, and I know for a fact the names, I suppose, really the names that could get to the top, and all of that, like it's just a completely different thing now. This one's like there's just more. There's more names that are more impressive than what it was last year. But we all won, so maybe we.
Yeah, I was going to say what we're saying is that the game is so much more competitive now, and winning a tournament is just so much harder to do. So, I mean, what does that say?
Hard,
really, you can put two and two together. It's just very hard. You have to be incredibly beautiful and talented to win a tournament of Flesh and Blood these days. So
you're the
that's
first
just what you got to do.
Me beautiful.
Yeah, it makes sense. But
before we go on, I do want to say one thing about the nationals. Actually, I think a lot of people are surprised that it is still only 96 people. The game has grown so much that I think nationals could support probably double that now.
I think it would, but I believe if it was a double, it would kind of very much feel like, I suppose, like last year, where I think a lot of people would just be a bit more, okay, RTN season, do I need to get into the top 4, blah, blah, blah. Whereas this, like beforehand, we were all in this space of really trying to get into a top 4, especially the people like not on page 1 of the experience board, right?
Yeah,
you're right. The RTNs would have been less well attended if people knew, I guess.
And I think that's what they've been worried about is there really before we found out about the cap, we were sort of like, is there really a need to go to an RTN? I mean, I guess it's really good XP, but you could just farm armories and get in if there's like 200 places. Now we know there's only 96, and it seems like more than half of those places are going to go out as invites for people top 4 in RTN.
Yeah, I believe so.
It means that these tournaments are more important than ever, and securing your top 4 place. I was a bit blasé about it on Saturday because this was before we knew about the cap, and I was saying, I'll probably get in on XP because I'm around 50th or 40th. I think I'm 30th now, but like actually that might not be enough. That's how close it is. So really, really tight. But I guess we can go back to that later in the podcast.
Yeah, I'll say this. I was gonna say. Now that's
you were gonna say.
I think this actually makes the national season like just far more competitive, I suppose, if you got it in '96, because you kind of do want to see all those people that got into the top 4, and they are going to be the players that you would expect to see at nationals. And like you said, if half of them are just like, it's all gone and the rest is XP, you know that there's going to be a lot of people fighting to get lots of experience. And the ones that do are winning quite a lot. So they're clearly going to be guys that are trying really hard. So the Nationals should be extremely competitive.
Yeah,
and I think they need the atmosphere difference for me. Last year's RTN season was defined by the prizes available.
Yeah.
This year, about
that. Yeah.
My extended art tunic says hello, Tripp.
Whatever. Sold it like 20 grand. Or...
Well, this year's RTN season has been defined by the places for nationals on offer. And I think that's probably the way it should be. Like the qualification should be the prize.
Oh, you would say that, wouldn't you? Your extended art tunic, you don't care a damn. I want a tunic.
I know, it's typical, isn't it? Like it's the one time I've actually managed to get into a top 8. It's like,
there has to be a balance, but I think the prizes have been a bit light this year. They maybe went over the top last year.
Yeah, but got it too good last time.
Maybe there'll be a bit of a balance, and we'll see. I think nationals will have a good prize haul again, and there was a decent cash prize last year, so.
I expect that the prizes for nationals to be as good as, if not better, basically because they're keeping the cap at 96. My expectation of that would be that they're doing that so that they can offer a similar level of prize support
and really
without having to expend more. So
the big prize at nationals is the PTI for Worlds, right? Now we know where it's going to be and when it's going to
be. Yeah, the PTI is a big.
Come on, Tripp. We're going to track you to a top 8. God, we haven't done any. This is clear. We haven't done any silliness. There's no home news, no silliness.
Not yet.
No, we just got struck in because
we're
so excited.
We're winners now. Pro players.
We're winners now, so we've got to talk about serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
On that note, Hamish, what are you drinking?
Well, to celebrate my first time epilating a small portion of my legs because I heard about this. I know. Well, my wife.
There we go. Back to normal service, guys.
Yeah,
back to normal service.
Well, my wife told me, try this epilator. It's so painful, blah, blah, blah. I was like, really? Is it that bad? She went, yeah, it really sucks. So I had a little go and I was like, God, it sucks. So
for people that don't know, what is an epilator, Hamish?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a machine that plucks hairs. It sucks. And talking from a guy with basically almost 2 full sleeves, it did suck. I think it was my Jackass 4. I was watched that recently, so I was like, I don't want to, but now I kind of dared myself, so I've got to do it. Anyway, this drink I picked this one up. Is that another one from Dale? No, I think it's a birthday one. Braybrook Hell's Lager. I picked a Hell's Lager because epilating your legs is hell. There you go.
Oh, very,
so
very
you've done that. I like the story.
Yeah, there you go. Simon.
Well, I have another Father's Day beer that to go along with last time's one. This one's called You Got the Wi-Fi Password with some crazy art on it.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a
pale ale. Cool.
Yeah.
Very
artsy.
Beaver Town.
Our Discord doesn't. We can see a lot of this on Discord, but our borders you just see half a can.
Yeah, you have to hold it
actually put it right in front of your face. Yeah. All right, cool.
The best bit about it is it's got a picture of the Waterworld, which is a cult film, cult classic.
Oh yeah,
Waterworld. Kevin Costner. Don't know why that makes me laugh, but it really does.
Came up. What? I'm sure that came out before I was born.
It definitely probably
did. Was it 80s or 90s?
80s.
That was before I was born.
Well, I was probably before I was born. Probably before we were all born. Anyway, wild card draft extraordinaire. Tripp.
Yeah, I'm the only one that. Right, we'll get onto that.
Yeah.
I want to draft one. These guys, anyone can win a CC game, right?
Well,
Have you got a
they can when they
draft
take
beer?
It
your.
takes skill to build a deck
Well-
on a tournament.
well,
It takes skill to force 5 3 times in a row. I am drinking a very basic Corona. It's a big one though.
Oh, it's a
I
biggie.
got back from Southampton. Kate had bought a Corona, so I had a bit of that, and it was like the best beer I've ever had because we finished in Southampton at like 10 to 8, and it took me like 3 hours to get home, and played like 9 games or something, and I just got home, and it was just like the best beer ever. So I'm reliving that moment when I got home and was like, yes,
Nice.
I actually won.
It's a good story.
It was pretty good, yeah.
That actually ties into your beer, whereas I just made one up. So,
Also, if you're not in the UK, it's really, really hot at the moment, and so a cold lager is really hitting the spot. And you can tell I've already been sipping.
Really hot.
It is. It's
hot.
Hotter than like Jamaica. They said today. I was on the news.
That's because Jamaica's in winter, probably.
Well, whatever, but it's still true. I don't know whatever.
It is. It was too hot.
It is very.
It was too hot. It was too hot.
It's not too hot.
Mate,
come on.
It was.
We're so British.
Whatever.
Anyway, guys.
So British.
Cheers. Congrats on your wins.
Congrats on your win.
Congrats on your win.
I'm going to shout out 2 more winners for David Dyson and Sharif, otherwise known as Shin to all of us, for winning their RTNs as well. Congratulations, lads. Everyone's doing well on the drafts?
I know.
Yeah.
People are loving it.
It's a good experience, I got to say. I think it's a really fun draft set. And I think there's nothing like going to a tournament with just a playmat and a couple of sleeves, and that's all you have to take with you, and you just pick up some packs and start drafting. It's great, makes it nice and chill. But yeah, well done to those guys. We have a sort of testing friend group, and I think we've had 5 RTM winners this season, which I believe is 1 more than last season. So we've improved on 2021 in this year, which is great, and we've still got 2 weekends to go. So hopefully we'll see a few more of our friends get first, because that seems to be the goal now. I mean, we probably before this we probably would have been saying just getting the top 4s, but now the pressure's on to get a couple of more winners in the group. So
it was a close one at Kingdom Gaming. There was in our group we've got Jake, Finbar, Jason, and myself and Jamie Faulkner, all of us getting into the top 8, and it kind of when you've got 2 friends facing off and one of them's getting to the top 8, it's quite rough. So, but yeah, that was probably that was a real good showing in our little group. And yeah, like Tripp said, hope to see more, and everyone else in the UK, because everyone else that has won a UK Nationals have got top 4. Congratulations, well done. I'll see you at Nationals.
Yeah, it's going to be good, and I think bringing it back to what we were saying in the intro. I think it just does show that it's going to be a really competitive Nationals tournament, because there's so many places are going to people that have top 4'd a competitive CC or competitive draft event. And I think it's fair to say that last year the majority of people got in on XP, which is not to say that if you've got a lot of XP you're not a good player. That's clearly not the case, but I think proven tournament experience of being able to top an event is pretty valuable, and I think it's just going to be a really exciting and difficult tournament to do well at. I think that's going to motivate us to have to up our game a bit and try and compete. Absolutely. Try and convert that win into winning an RTN right now is great, but we want to try and convert that to a high placing at Nationals if we can.
Absolutely. My goal is still make day 2.
Yeah, that's got to be the first.
Get a bit of money.
Break it down into realistic chunks.
I want to get into day 2, please.
Yeah, that's my goal. I think with Nationals, if you can walk away with LSS sending you a couple of £100 for turning up, I think that's a success. Getting paid to play card games will never get old. So I think that's a really good thing to aim for.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you want to chat about, guys?
Well, my feeling was Hamish. Hamish told us. Yeah, Hamish told us a bit about his RTN experience when we did the Visceroid deck tech.
I did. Go check that out.
Go and check that out.
Proven deck list now. Officially not a fluke.
Subscribe to our YouTube and take a look at our Patreon. Because Hamish actually gave our Patreon group his sideboard notes for the deck.
and an update as well of what I would take out and stuff.
And I took that information and went and won an RTN with it. So, you know,
I know you showed me how it's done.
Yeah,
because I sucked that day.
First off, like, we've heard about Viserai, we've heard about the deck tech. Tripp, tell us about your draft experience over the weekend.
Yeah, I would like to, actually, because I think it's an interesting draft set, and I wanted to give you the background of going into this draft at Southampton, which was the previous weekend,
where
I went to Liverpool and went 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss in the first pod, and then 2 losses and a win in the second pod. So complete disaster. So I went away and just sort of thought about how I wanted to approach the draft. And the more I've been looking at Fi, is that Fi to me seems like a hero that you don't actually need a huge number of really good cards to make a really good Fi deck. And that means that Fi is probably the most open of all of the heroes in the draft experience. So I went in thinking, right, I'm going to try and approach this, and kind of the meme is like forcing Fi, right? But my approach was, I think if I commit early to Fi and take really good cards, I can do pretty well. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to just try and see if I could get good Fi decks from just picking the best cards early and committing to it. And it went really well in the first pod. In the first pod, I drafted what I would consider to be a tier 1 Fi draft. Like, I had everything I wanted.
Was it a constructed deck?
It was almost constructed level. It was absolutely busted. I think pretty much every single card had Go Again. I had 2 copies of the red rare 1 cost 4 Go Again, which lets you banish, give the next card +1, which I think is insane. Because it works with Phoenix Flame, incidentally. You can always give a Phoenix Flame +1, even if you play it first and you happen to have a Phoenix Flame. I often arsenal a Phoenix Flame because sometimes you do like 3 Draconic Chain Links, you don't have Go Again at the end, you can still fetch a Phoenix Flame. So if you have 2 in the arsenal, 2 in the grave, you can fetch 1 and arsenal it. Do that kind of thing. And it was just bonkers. But that deck went 2-1. I lost to another Fi who managed to get off Lava Burst, Tide Flippers into Searing Touch. Did 20 damage in 1 turn.
My days.
And that was a 5 mirror. I went second. I got him down super low. I thought, okay, I've got this game completely locked out. And then he just puts me down to 1. Amazingly, I saw it coming, and I actually got the read on it somehow, and I blocked. So I didn't die to the 2 burst from Searing Touch, but I might as well not have bothered because I was so low I couldn't get back into the game. But I was feeling good, and what that meant is that it's put me into pod 2 rather than pod 1, and that, you know, that is an advantage in a way, because you're not up against the 3-0s. So theoretically, the field is a little bit weaker. It didn't really feel like that when I was playing, but I went for Fi again, and I got a slightly worse deck, but I just sort of, you know, I played well and managed to get through, went 3-0, and then going into the top 8, I have to say my main goal was to just win that first game and get my nationals invite. And I'm sure the 2 of you can relate. You know, when you get to the top 8, the one thing you don't want to do is lose the first game.
That's the worst game in the entire RTN season. Is top 8. It's I don't know about you, but when you did it, how emotionally, like,
it was just a huge relief. And you know, I went into the draft thinking I want to win this first game, and I thought to myself, the best way to probably just win 1 game is to go Fi. And I did again think that was in the back of my mind. I knew I could play this deck well now. I was really getting a feel for it, and I was starting to see lots of lines that I hadn't seen before, doing weird things with like Inflame and Flame Call Awakening, doing stuff like you can break the chain with it, like, to get the Phoenix Flame into the graveyard and then play an Inflame to fetch it back, because it doesn't look at the chain link, it just looks if you've played a red card and stuff like that. Doing these really bizarre turns with like no good cards, but just hitting 1 like 6-7 times in a row. It was just doing the job. I went into the top 8 just wanting to win that first game, and I came up against Darren of Darren's Card Store, as you may know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Knew
cool,
Darren was a really big, like, I knew that he played Ninja and had been playing Ninja for a while. So I kind of, you know who you're going to play before you go into the top 8. I thought he's probably going to play Fi as well, but I know that I'll be able to choose to go second. So Fi felt like a good pick to secure the Nationals place, because I would get to choose to go first. I mean, he could have completely curveballed me and gone for Wizards. That does happen in the draft if it come that way. But I thought I kind of put him on going Fi. So I had that in the back of my mind. It was a really close game. My deck was terrible. It was a really bad draft. There was 4 Fis. I made a bit of a mistake where I kind of let a couple of good red cards go because I thought I had a shortage of blues, which I did, but then the blues came along at the end anyway. So it was a bit of a risk, because I knew if I didn't have the blues, my deck wouldn't function. So I took a bit of a gamble by taking some poor quality blues rather than a good quality red, and it was a big mistake. But I managed to draft a decent deck, and I did manage to win that first game. And then, to be honest with you guys, I have absolutely no idea what happened in the semi-finals, in the finals. I came up against George Rogers in the semis. He was playing Dramai. He had a really good Dramai deck. And I would say I basically got lucky. I went second, and I drew 2 Phoenix Flames and Rise Up and a red. I had a red from my first hand that I'd kept from the previous turn because I couldn't block with it, because it was a tome of whatever that doesn't block that I shouldn't have put in my deck. And then I proceeded to go Phoenix Flame, pitch tome, fetch Phoenix Flame, crack sash, red hot, rise up for 9 with dominate. And also I'd broken the hands, so I went 1, 2, 2, 9 with dominate, which is not a turn you should be doing in draft. That got him low enough that even with my subpar deck, I was able to push damage through, and then I ended up winning because he drew into a red sand cover and he didn't have any ash. So, which he said, like, it, you know, it was I think he'd be fair to be saying it was sort of like a learning experience for him. You know, you've got to keep 1 ash, even if you've got those red rakes and you can transform. If you're running that sand cover and you don't keep an ash on the field, that can be catastrophic. And it did. It cost him the game. And then in the final, just came up against the Icelander. I didn't think I had a chance at all. There was 2 Icelanders, and he'd won the Icelander mirror, he didn't get to choose to go first or second. He must have gone second in the Icelander mirror. So that says to me that he's got a really, really good Icelander deck, because that mirror is really hard if you don't go first. And I just relied on a few games that I played against some locals, in particular. Shamir, who's a local Icelander player, has been playing Icelander in Blitz before it was cool, and now plays Icelander in Classic Constructed. And I just did the fundamentals, just made sure I mapped everything out and worked out exactly how much damage they could do, and I managed to win it. But it was just about playing as well as I could. It's a really tough matchup for Fi, but I managed to pull through.
Nice.
It was a fantastic tournament and experience. Like, I'm sure you guys can relate, but just winning is really satisfying.
So
like, you tell yourself, like, you know, playing the game is really fun, and going out there and seeing all these amazing stores and meeting all these amazing people, I do really love it and I really enjoy it. But it's just so nice to actually take the first place sometimes. It just really validates a lot of the time and effort you put in to actually win one. And I managed to go 4th, 8th and 9th in the RTNs last season. So being able to actually get a first place just was super satisfying. But yeah, that was my experience. I was talking it through, but I think draft is really fun. You know, you can get far with forcing Fi, but you can also get absolutely blown up by not just Icelander, but there's some really dirty Dramai decks out there, and we can talk about draft to the end of the time. But
Sharif won on Dramai in the top 8.
Wow.
Yeah. The thing is, Dramai's got a 2-cost DL8. Like, what? If you get 3 of those, like, what are you doing as Fi? Like, they keep a card, they hit you for 8. Keep a card, hit you for 8. Make a dragon, hit you a dragon, hit you for 8. You know, there's like 2 cards in the set that break Phantasm, right?
Is there 2? No, there's 3.
There's Findels. There's okay, fine. There's a raised face as well. There's Brothers in Arms and there's Flex, where you can pay to make it go from 4 to 6.
Flex is a bit
not the best one,
but it's either that or lose, right? And for a dragon show up, especially in like, I don't know, if you're playing Icelander, you'd be like, I can't deal with this, pop. And there's no dragons. Yeah, it's probably only like 2. I don't know. Maybe some Dre, my player, will tell me there's more. But if you can deal with a Necrio or a just anything, if that stays on the board, crap, sounds like it's a
Necro is horrible to deal with. My experience of draft last week at Underworld was coming 9th. When I went 2-1 in the first pod, losing to a Dramai in the 3rd round of the first pod, and it was Necria that did me. He had Necria out from turn 1, and
does that swing for 4?
Yeah, swings for 4.
7 health. That's
7 health, and he gets a health counter every time he deals damage. A -1 health counter every time he deals damage or is dealt damage. So he's the only dragon that you can sort of chip down. But he also creates an ash when he hits. So it's it's huge. Like,
and the ash is so important. Like I've heard people saying that it's better than Uvia or Ovia, the one that actually makes ash wings, because actually just or converts an ash to an ash wing, because it's actually getting that ash is really tough, because if Fi's got you on the back foot, you're not able to actually, you might get a couple of pitches on a quell, but it's such a risk to pitch a red. Whenever I see a Dramai player in draft pitch a red to quell, I'm just like, great, you're gonna die, because I'm just gonna hit you very, very hard now. You've just given up a 3 block for a 1 block, right? So I think draft is super fun. I'd recommend everyone do it. I think RTN draft is pretty chill. It's one of those things where, like, at the end of the day, you're opening packs. Like you can go 0-6, but you open a cold foil Crown of Provenance, and who's really the winner at that tournament if you're walking away with a £150-200 card. Do you guys want to, Simon? Do you want to cover your tournament experience? Because you had a bit of a, I would say, interesting lead up to your tournament.
I will kick this off for you, Simon. When you initially told me that you're coming to Manascrew, and you went, are you ready for draft, Hamish? And I went, absolutely not, because I'm not going to any draft. And when you're like, well, this is a draft, and I went, I'm afraid not, buddy. It's CC. And you're like, I haven't got a deck. Don't worry.
Yeah. So what to do with no deck? This was a couple of weeks ago. What
do I do
with no deck? Not knowing what to play in the meta. Oh, Hamish has just won an RTN. I'll borrow his deck. So
good shout.
Yeah. So we took Hamish's RTN winning deck, made literally only a couple of changes. I personally felt there was going to be a bit of Wizard coming back into the meta, so I put some Oasis Respite in and took away a couple of equipment pieces.
You took one away.
I took one. I took a tunic out.
The most important one. Yeah.
Silly. We'll come back to that. And then I changed some yellow Read the Runes for more Movrians. Red Movrians. Yeah.
Good advice.
So the whole day started off really well. Bad planning on my part. Mistakes were definitely made. I was doing a 24-hour on-call shift, finishing at Sunday 8 a.m. My train was due at 8:20, and I was in the hospital for nearly 18 hours on Saturday, getting home at about 4:30 in the morning. So decided to get up and go anyway. Why wouldn't I? It's last RTN opportunity of the season. Got to the train station just after 8 o'clock to find out my train was delayed. Actually not delayed, cancelled. Jumped on another train, and that got stuck at the next station because there was engineering works on. And I was on the phone to Hamish. I was so close to jacking it in, waiting on this train for an hour. I was all despondent. I was like, if I get off now, I can get home, I can go back to bed. And then literally 2 minutes later, there was an update saying we were going to get moving. Anyway, long story short, we ended up getting 2 Manascrew
5 minutes before round 1.
5 minutes before round 1. So we got there, and this reminds me of one of Finbar's RTN wins from last year, where he turned up to Manascrew halfway through round 1, and he ended up losing the round 1, obviously, because he didn't play it, and then won the rest of the
it was insane.
Never lost.
I remember messaging him, and he was ready to go home, and I said, "Finbar, just come because you'll get the cold foil prison aura." And then of course he didn't get it, did he? Because he won the funny thing.
Exactly.
Liar.
So yeah, turn up 5 minutes before round one. Head into Azalea round one, and Nathan on Azalea, die hard Azalea player, and we had a lovely game.
I love that we had a lovely game.
It was a lovely game.
I'm sure it was for you.
He came at me turn 1 for 13, turn 2 for 11, turn 3 for something else, dominate, and I'm thinking, this is really bad. But then he hit a rough patch, and I managed to get some tempo back. So that was a good game.
That sounds
round
like
two. Round two was against the Reinar player Dimitri, who had just beaten Hamish, who's playing almost an identical deck. Obviously.
What do you mean, almost an identical deck?
It is identical.
Simon added his special.
No, he didn't. He just said, "What do I take out?" And I said, "Put this in." And then there was 2 cards. I said, "Just put some defense cards, whatever you want." And then
no. Simon added his own sleeves, and that made the big difference to the quality of the deck. Yeah.
What do I know?
So, you don't know.
I lost to Dimitri, for God's sake. Although I have to say, big shout out to Dimitri. He is my local. He's literally my local player. He's the only guy that shows up to my club and plays flesh and blood with me physically. So he's like my only player, and another guy called James Adam. But me and him, we talk all the time. So when we were round one playing, this is probably my only point I'll say about the whole Mana Screw, because the rest of it was I'll say one more point after that. But yeah, me and Dimitri, when he beat me, he was like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe I've actually beat you." I was like, "I know, we play this way all the time, and I kick your ass against Reiner." But he basically barrage and beat down, Blood Rush Bellow, Massacre. I'm on 6 health. I've got Rattlebones in hand. I was like, Rattlebones, what a card to leave me with. I feel like this is me right now. He just literally just smashed me in the face and killed me. My last point is, Mana Screw can go to hell, because every one of those players who plays there beat me. If anyone's outside of Mana Screw, I won. Everyone who plays at Mana Screw just kicked my ass, and I was like,
home field advantage, Hamish. They know that.
Yeah, they're all basically saying this is what happens when you don't show up. That's my that's my tournament experience. Carry on, Simon.
Round 2 against Dimitri, Reinar player, and he comes at me first turn for barraging beatdown into Alpha Rampage.
Which colour barraging was it? Red, probably.
No, it was it was red. So he came at me for 13. Intimidate 3, 13. So I took 10 on the first turn.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, must be nice. Yeah. And then about 2 turns later, I had a ridiculous turn, which was Mordred into an attack, into Creepers in a Revel, into another attack, into the sword. And I basically stripped his whole hand, did 10 damage on top, and then had the upper hand for the rest of the game. Yeah. And we were just both sat there. I had to apologise. I was like, I'm really sorry. Yeah. This is what happens. And it just rolled hot. So happy days. Round 3 was on stream against David Calf, who's an ex-competitive Magic player, playing Briar at the moment. Really solid player. We had a really not your normal Briar Viserai game, because we both drew absolutely terrible for the first 3 or 4 hands. So it was really cagey. We blocked a lot more than we thought. And unfortunately, it came down to him whiffing on a 4-card Sonata on 1 health. He was on 1 health. I was on, I think, 6. And he just didn't get what he needed. And I managed to push through some arcane damage on the next turn. Round 4 was really interesting against Jack Raven, who is a patron of the podcast, and really solid player, really solid guy. He's playing Icelander at the moment, and it hurt both of our brains. That matchup is horrendous. It's probably about 50-50. He tried to punt hard really early. And I tried to punt hard for the whole game by drawing terribly and just not doing very well.
Well,
it was close.
I leaned over and I just said to the guy, I was like, all right, okay, hang on. Oh, I see a dice on his thing. Brilliant. He's put a tunic in. What the hell? There's no tunic. Oh man, this guy's going to have a rough day.
Yeah, no Tunic. Turns out Tunic's really good against Icelander for Coronet Peak.
Yeah.
Coronet Peak is all right.
Yeah.
Coronet Peak and Alluvian Castellas are really good cards. Turns out,
especially against Viscero, right?
Yeah.
Especially against Viscero.
Well, that's why you want. That's why you want to. Did you not listen to my deck? Anyway,
yeah, he was.
I just wanted to jump in because I thought you would mention Icelander and Jack. Jack Raven and Shamir both taking Icelander out at CC at the moment in the UK, and
salute to
those games. I know you said they're so much fun. Like I love playing against Icelander. It's everything I wanted Kano to be, which is the range of damage is so much more manageable and mathable. You can play a really good game by playing well. Like you can play well against Icelander and keep an eye on your health and keep an eye on what they can do. And it's just so much more satisfying than just them, I'm just going to go for it. It's like they can't just go for it, right? They have one Storm Striders and whatever that they can use once per game. That's fine. And they have whatever's in their arsenal. And once, that's you can play around that, and that's really good. So I just wanted to say, I think that deck's really good for the game. It's a much better wizard design than Kano, in my opinion, and I'm glad that we've got it.
It's a nicer game to play, that's for sure. But it's very terribly taxing.
I'd call it the mid-range wizard. It's like a mid-range hero, isn't he? Just blocking up and stealing a little bit back, blocking up, dealing a bit. Whereas, like you said, Kano's a combo deck, straight up.
Yeah.
So that was round 4, and at the end of round 4, I was 3-1, and top 8 was locked at that point. So we were playing a 5th round. But top 8 was locked because there were only 8 people with 3 or more wins in the event.
I'll apologise on this point, Simon, for because everyone was super chill. I sat next to you, and it must have been rough as fuck for you. So
both David and Jack, my last 2 opponents were in the top 8, and I'm now playing against George Roger, who was on Bravo, original Bravo, obviously, and he's also locked in the top 8. So. It should have been a fairly chill matchup. Hamish comes and sits right next to me and just breathes down my neck the whole game.
No, I didn't. Just to be clear, I didn't talk to you.
No, he didn't talk. He just breathed, and I could hear him. I could hear the thoughts in his head saying, "I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't do it like that." And shout out. Right, so shout out to George. Shout out to George Rogers because. We've had some great games. We played a couple of games in the RTN season last year. We obviously played a semi-final at Nationals, which was he played really well.
Yeah, remember when you didn't block a dominated attack? Yeah,
absolutely tilted that one.
I got told by George to mention that.
Yeah, thanks. And so I we had a bit of a slugfest actually. I managed to take that game just. And then we got paired up again straight in the top 8. Now, George being the very decent guy that he is, it came around that he had a friend that wanted to leave the event. George had already qualified the day before at, I think he's
at Southampton. It was at Southampton. We played in the semis,
2 top 4s already, one at Underworld, one at Southampton, if I'm right. And being the great guy that he is, he decided that he was going to concede and go home with his mate who needed to go home. So that gave me another life, and I got through to a semi-final against another opponent I'd already played, David Calf.
I think we had another. Skipped a bit there, Simon, because you said you were talking about round 5. You played George. So you won that, and then you got paired into George.
I said that already.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. Right.
Yeah,
just in case.
So won round 5, got paired into George in top 8, and then obviously he did an amazing thing and conceded and let me go through to the semi-final, where I played David Calf on Briar again. Much more of a typical Viserai Briar match. In the mid-game, he had a Channel Mount Heroic out, and he did 20 plus damage in a turn with a Rabble, a Snatch, Scar for a Scar, ridiculous damage, and I'm just sat there taking it. I ended up on sort of 6 health to his 22, I think. And then my favourite turn of the whole event comes out, and I took damage because I knew I had the game winning. He had no arcane barrier. Oh.
You disgusting fool.
I went Mordred tied into a blue shrill for 5. He's on 20, pitching a blue. He's on 22. He takes 5 damage as an attack reaction.
Oh, well,
Oh, sorry, he no block. As an attack reaction, creepers, revel from hand, 7 rune chance. Already added to the 2 I made from playing shrill.
9.
Got an extra action point, so 5 damage goes through. He's on 17. Revel from Arsenal, which has been sat there for about 3 turns. So we're now up to 16. We're now up to 16 rune chance. I've got
Revel is a fair and balanced card.
I've got no resources floating. I'm on 16 rune chance. I break my Ether Weave, and I come in for 16 plus 2 plus 2.
Oh my days!
And he's now dead.
That was
that turn was ridiculous.
That was like a free kick outside the box. We're 1-1, 90th minute, and you just score an absolute belter, and you hear the crowd. Yeah, that was.
If I don't draw Mordred there, it's not happening.
Yeah, but you got that.
I got it. I had Revel sitting there waiting for the Mordred.
The Chalamat Heroic Bride is trying to play Chalamat Heroic, and you're trying to play Mordred. It's the same. It's the same thing, isn't it? He did 20 plus to you. You did 20 plus to him.
Yeah, and then so that'll be featured. Actually, that'll be featured on Baz the Bard's YouTube channel. Baz was there streaming with
Tabletop 24.
Al. Tabletop 24 and Al,
good friend of the podcast, and great stream. I was enjoying it,
and so that will be featured on Baz's channel, Baz the Bard, and then on to the final against another player I know very well. Hadn't played him yet yesterday, but I played him in the final, and that's Joe Stamper, who is a very, very gifted Ranger player, and he plays Lexi.
He's just a good player.
Exactly.
He's an insane. He's a monster in this game, man.
He's a local. He plays in my local armory, so I meet him most Wednesdays. And
the stream said something very funny in the chat. They said it is beard versus mustache.
Oh, he has an incredible beard. Joe has an incredible
massive
beard.
And the second I saw that, I was like, absolutely.
And well, again, he has a great Lexi deck. We both had a pretty cagey start. My goal, because I've played Lexi a number of times recently in armories, and my goal was to keep more life than him, because I know what a 3 of a kind turn from him can do. I know he's going to come at me with frostbites. I just want to chip damage and hopefully block out enough that I can keep doing that until he gets to a point where I can finish the game. There was a point I was on 27 health. He dropped down to 12 or 13. He had a 3 of a kind turn, and he had 4 reds in hand, pitched a red. Oh no, tunic into 3 of a kind. He drew 4 reds.
Yeah, I saw that turn. I just looked at the pitch zone and I was just like, that is not happy.
Pitch. I was like,
it was crazy.
And I literally, I don't know if you could hear, well, you couldn't hear me, but I was on Barry's shoulder, literally, because I could see your hand, and I was going, he should do this. He should block this up. He should be able to pitch over here. He's got to do this. And then when he pitched that red in that 3 of a kind, I went, Barry, he's just pitched a red. Do you know how bad that is? That means
I couldn't hear any of what Hamish was doing.
Thank God, because I was like, going, come over here.
I could see his body language, but I couldn't hear what was going on.
I don't know if you could, because I was pacing.
The first 2 cards he pitched was a red and then a remorseless, and I'm thinking, okay, he's not got much, so I'm gonna block up and try and do a little bit back. I think I kept to the Sonata, and and managed to get a CNC off the Sonata and a blue. So I managed.
You had a frostbite token, didn't you? So when you played that, you had to pay 1.
Yeah.
And I sat there for a second thinking, I wonder if Simon will use the extra 2 to find another 1 more card. And you just went, no, I'm just going to do it naked. And I went, my God, this guy is brave, but man, did that pay off.
Anyway, that's what we were saying, right? It's Sonata. Sonata can
win
save
games,
you.
It lose games, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that just switches the game round sometimes.
That was very fortunate, and the CNC
it's just the perfect
2 cards, and
must be nice.
Yeah. After that, I did still have a couple of turns where I just dumped my hand. Like I had an all blue hand.
That's because you had an all attack hand, and then
I dumped it, and then again I had a Revel sitting in Arsenal, and the Mordred tide comes round, and he had a great turn. He had two Rain Razors, and he came at me with an Endless Arrow. I'm on 27 health. There's no on hit effects apart from the fact that he keeps the Endless Arrow, so I take the damage, 8 damage. He then loads it again and comes at me for 9. It leaves me on what, 8?
I think you were down to I think you were down to
Anyway,
I think
I'm still alive.
You're on the single digits.
He's got no way of loading another arrow, so I'm not blocking, because I then go Mordred into become the Arc Knight for no effect.
I was looking at that entire turn going, no, don't do this. One blizzard, the blizzard will show up.
No, did I go and find a swarming?
No, you didn't. No, so you had a swarming in hand. You had
a red Mobrian in hand.
So you had Mordred, Gloom, and 2 blues, and you had a Revel in Arsenal.
And
my brain was just going.
My brain's frazzled.
Do this. But anyway,
so it was Mordred into become.
Two. No, you pitched. So you played Mordred, pitched the grass, make 2, played become, make it another 2. Gloom.
Yeah, Gloom for 4 plus 4 rune chance. 4 rune chance plus 4. He blocked 3 rune chance, took 1,
and then he didn't take the Gloom. He took the Gloom damage.
He blocked 3 and took 1 Gloom damage, and then I came in Revel for 7, and then
that was it.
Rosetta for 2+2, and he couldn't block it because he'd taken the Gloom.
It was a great game. I particularly enjoyed it.
It was such a good game. I'm glad it was on stream. I'm glad I can go back and look at all the mistakes that Hamish told me immediately after.
No, to be honest with you, right, I say all this. I think it's like when you played that final game, I generally saw you as a player come out that it's like, even though everything that I'm doing and looking at that deck, I'm just like, yeah, okay, these are like we're picking different lines, different sort of importances, and I'm sort of I've realized that I'm actually a little bit more reserved, and I'm thinking of like 2 turns ahead, whereas you're actually looking at some type like maintaining a bit of tempo on turns that I wouldn't want to. I thought, I'm ahead here. Like, I think there was a couple of times where I read the runes I would have just baited, like made an attack, make them think I'm going to attack, and then read the runes to make a bigger next turn. Just little things like that. But there was one play you did in the final that I think won you the game, and because I said to Barry, I think you had an all red hand, you blocked for 5, and then you had a Rattle Bones and the Revel in hand.
Yeah,
and I said to Barry, I think you should block with both of them cards. And then you said, no, I'll just block for 3. Just the Rattle and keep the Revel, and I'll take the on-hit effects and get. I was like, oh man!
I got a Frostbite, and then I Arsenal the Revel and said, "Over to you."
Yeah, and then instantly you did that. I went, that is it. That was it. That was definitely the moment you set yourself up to win the game. And I just thought, wow, I wouldn't have done that, and I definitely felt like that would have cost me.
You know what?
The point of the game. So that was the point where I thought you as the player was like, Jesus, Simon's so good at this.
Well, no, I've not. Well, thank you. I've not played a huge amount of Viscerai over the years. I've played Runeblade. I've played aggro decks. But what I have done is played against people who play Runeblade and Viscerai specifically really well, namely James Armstrong and Hamish here, who play Viscerai regularly and consistently, and are people that I've played against and tested against a lot in the last 2 years. So although I've not played the deck, and obviously it's changed a lot since Arcane Rising came out, I've seen those lines again and again and again, and they stick with you when you play them, right? They stick, and you think after a while when you're testing against Viscerai, you're like, you see the first card and you're like, I hope he hasn't got this card. I hope he's not going to do this, and it happens, and you're just like, the power level is crazy. Like, this deck at the moment is. Sometimes, obviously, it's not invincible, but sometimes you feel invincible playing it because you can just pull a 20 damage turn out of nowhere off of a blue pitch, and you're just like, well, this is crazy. A bit like Fi, I guess. Like, we're seeing Fi do 15 to 20 damage turns off of a blue pitch, no problem.
We're seeing Fi do like 20 damage turns in drafts.
Yes.
I was going to just add something to what you guys are saying, because obviously we focused quite heavily on the the deck, the Viceroy deck. But I think I've said this before on the podcast, but I think a huge part of converting from a top 8 to a win is mental, is your mental game.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this time and time again, is that I think sometimes you forget how long these tournaments are, right? Like you're playing, for Simon, bloody hell, he worked basically an 18-hour shift and then went into 5 rounds of Swiss, 8 rounds of top 8.
Shift is the reason he won, right?
I was going to say,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
my mind was so
you're so focused on the game because that's all you can focus on.
all I could do was play the cards in front of me, and you stop overthinking. Like I'm quite a big overthinker, and I will go through hands.
You go
and
in
I will
tank.
I go in the tank, and I'll think of 4 different lines, but I did that maybe a couple of times on Sunday, and most of the time it was just like, I've got these cards, this is the line, this is the only line I'm going to see and only line I'm going to play, and not worry about it. And I think that did help me.
And I think it's the same for most, like when I went into the top 8 of the draft, I just sort of had this feeling of, I've been in a top 8 before.
Yeah.
I've played at this kind of level, and it just felt good to be back there again, because I've been in a top 8 a couple of times recently, but not as much as I used to. But I still had those reserves to draw back on that experience of this knockout format of the game, which for a lot of people, they might not have actually been in that situation before, and it gets in their head. And I think that is so, I've played finals of tournaments where I can, not at Southampton, but in the past, where I can tell my opponent's mentally checked out completely because they're exhausted. And then you see the mistakes, and you see it in their face that they've just almost not given up, but they don't have it in them, and it takes a lot,
I didn't know tilting was a real thing until I started playing these types of tournaments, and you see people make a small mistake, and then it becomes their whole thought process for the rest of the game.
Yeah, right? Totally. And that's the thing. You get on a roll, like you, Simon. Like you start winning, and the wins produce more wins. Like I lost my second game, and then I just won because every game I went into the game knowing that I won the previous one, and that's what you need to focus on, is that you can win. And like, even if you're coming up against, like I sat there, so I don't know if we mentioned this on the podcast, but I was out with my wife and we were watching Simon on the live stream from Nando's in Woodford. Nando's Woodford, never seen the likes of this before. And I said to Kate, I was like, oh, he's up against Ice Lexi. That's a really tough matchup for Simon, for Viceroy. But I was like, I know Simon can win because he's a proven winner. Like there's, you can't. I know it sounds so sycophantic.
You should have heard me. You should have heard me at the event. I said, Simon, you're up against Lexi. You're fucked. I'm going out.
But that's the thing. Some people just win games, right? Like I always say of myself, I lose games I should win, but sometimes I win games I should lose, and sometimes it just aligns in the right way.
Yeah.
And like that's my feeling of the final of my one, is that there's no way that my Fejer deck should have beaten that Icelander deck, but sometimes you just win games that you shouldn't win because of whatever, because you've got the headspace, or you get lucky, or like. Yeah. But that's part of the game, is getting into that winning mindset and never go into a game thinking you don't have a chance. Go into the game thinking I can win, and I've got an idea of how I'm going to do that.
I think that's what you need a bit of luck. Like,
totally.
George Rogers needs to go home, right? George Rogers.
Yeah, exactly. Like George Rogers needs to not keep an ash on the table. Yeah. Thank you, George.
I have to say, I can't remember who said it at the event, Simon, but I think they said that one of the players is like, I think it was. I can't remember who said it, but he said, I think this other player, I actually now foresee him winning the whole tournament just because of how the match lineup was. And I think I looked at him and went, what the fuck are you on about, man? You ain't gonna win. And it was like, well, he ain't gonna win. And he went, how? And I said, fucking Simon's gonna fucking win it. I'm telling you now. I said that. I said Simon's winning it. This dude has got literally the best deck in the event, and this guy is.
If you do say so yourself.
Well, no, that deck's fire.
It's crazy.
The deck's fire, man. And at the event, and the only person I was literally worried about was George Rogers and Joe Stamper. Everyone else was like, it was going to be tough. Don't get me wrong, but George Rogers and Joe Stamper on their decks with their skill level at it, they were the ones I was like, I think this is going to be a rough day. Everything else, you could lose. Not saying you're gonna win, but I just be like, all right, if I put money on it, I always put money on. I'll put money on Simon and this deck. But unless it's George Rogers or Joe Stamper, then I'm like, I don't know actually.
what Tripp was saying earlier, like we talked about this way back in like episode 5, 6, maybe earlier. Tournament fatigue is a thing, and you have to prepare. Mm-hmm. I generally, when I go to these events now, I have like a co-op meal deal, a couple of different snacks, a couple of different drinks, and like a bag of peanut M&Ms. That's my, like, if I need sugar, a bag of peanut M&Ms is going in my mouth. And it's so important. There's no way I'm getting through that event without caffeine and without sugar.
What do you do, Tripp?
Well, if I do well, I have lunch. Generally, if I don't do well, I don't have a proper lunch. No, but I always I get, I tend to drink a lot of coffee. I'm a bit of a coffee fanatic. I try to keep my caffeine levels high. I try to do well, but like I have, I have a medication that I take, so sometimes it can just be a complete write-off because the medication makes you very drowsy. So I have to try and counteract that sometimes with like high caffeine levels to try and keep my brain like focused. But it can be tricky. But I think the important thing is stay hydrated. I know this sounds like self-help, but please just drink some water. Don't. Okay, my one piece of advice, and the TCG stores will hate me for saying this: don't drink Monster Energy drink ever. Never buy it. It's so tempting, and you're like, yeah, that's what I need right now. No, do not drink that shit. Get water. Just only drink water. Maybe have a Coca-Cola if that takes your fancy, but try and just drink water. Try and snack and eat a proper lunch. It's so hard to find the time to eat lunch because a lot of these tournaments never have a lunch break. But genuinely, every tournament that I've done really well at has had a lunch break. Yeah. Or I've had a short game at the right time and I've managed to go out and eat food. God, it's so important.
I will say that you guys sound incredibly fucking sensible. I'll tell you
Hamish just wings it.
No, I'm not even gonna lie. Barry will tell you. Best way to win a tournament is to show up absolutely fucking hungover and eat the dirtiest meal you can.
Now, I don't hate that because also I have won tournaments before where I've not taken it seriously, and a lot of the
I take it seriously. I take it so seriously. But I'm so excited that I've got an amazing day ahead of me the next day. I'm like, oh my god, tomorrow's gonna be so sick. I'll tell you what I want to do tonight. I'm going to meet up with my mates because tomorrow I've got an awesome day. So I'm going to go and meet up with my friends. And then I get absolutely shit. Well, this is back before I had kids. I've got absolutely shit face. Rock up to the next day going, why did I do this? Because now today sucks. But
the hangover does, right? So firstly, don't do this unless you know what you're doing, right? But a hangover can focus your brain, very similar to Simon and his complete lack of sleep. Sometimes if you just take everything away from you, all you have left is the game.
Just so you know, I don't do that anymore. But I usually wake up and have no desire to eat breakfast, and I usually just get this huge bottle of water. I don't even drink most of it, and I'm just too busy chattering shit all day long. So hyped on my own adrenaline, and I think throughout the entire day I may just have one chocolate bar in me, and that's because it was just there. And I forget to eat the rest of the shit because I'm already just talking to everyone so much or going out vaping. I tell you what, vaping, that's the only thing I think I live on. I'm like, just outside vaping all day long.
I just want to say, on Tripp's note about lunches, Mark and Manus Crew put on a 20-minute lunch break yesterday, which is ideal. It's not too long. It doesn't let you do too much apart from have a break to eat. I know Bash, Boards and Swords Hobbies in Derby near me.
Oh, they're the best.
When they run a big event like a Road to Nationals, which they're running, they've still got a couple of tickets left for Saturday the 16th. 9
left as well last checked.
So if you listen to this before then and you want to go. They usually put on a lunch for people, buy Domino's in. You get an individual Domino's pizza in your ticket price.
Perfect.
Again, Living Realms do a lunch package with theirs. Like, just Underworld give you a lunch break. If you're going to an event, make use of the lunch break.
Just eat some food.
Do some food.
Yeah. You'd be amazed at the difference it makes. Like the tournament, there's such a step change between the tournaments where I don't have time for breakfast because I have to get up early and go on a train, and you just go in and you fail because you need those reserves. Like it really makes such a huge difference. And why would you not give yourself an advantage over someone else who's not found the time to do it? That's what you should ask yourself. Like, if you could start the game with 22 life, would you not do it? Like it's the same. Like starting with being a sustained sustenance inside of you, like a better functioning human being. Would you not take that? Like,
so we're giving you all this advice. So but none of us did any of that. So turns out, don't eat, don't sleep, win, repeat.
Right.
That's the time.
I have an incredible memory to end the podcast on.
Yeah.
I will say, subscribe to our YouTube, get all of Hamish's tips on his deck tech, win events. Go and look at our Patreon, get the sideboard, win more events. Does anyone want to say anything just before we finish up?
No, I'm just. It's also no, not really. I think we've talked a lot about ourselves.
Sorry, guys. A circle jerk going on.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to share this because I think it's fair to say that, like, Push the Point, we as a podcast, we try to be like accessible, and we talk about the game, and we're just three guys who enjoy playing the game. But I think it says a lot about our, we won these tournaments, and I think it's because we put time and effort in, and we've been playing this game for so long. There's always a bit of luck, a huge amount of luck, but you don't win tournaments without luck. You don't win tournaments without. Ultimately, no one's going to remember what happened. They're just going to see the fact that you won it. And it's always really nice to say, I won a tournament. And I'm really happy that the three of us managed to win it within 2 weeks of each other. And we're going to try and share any, I don't know how useful our insight will be, but if we have insight and you want to hear about it, just let us know. Maybe we'll do something on draft. Maybe we'll do more on the deck tech if we think there's anything else to add based on Simon's experience. But we want to share with our audience, because if you look at my experience, I went from winning 2 games at a draft RTN to winning 8. And I think it, I just want people to see that. And, you can completely scrub out of a tournament, and the next one you can completely smash it. So just bear that in mind. And I hope that inspires people in some way.
Cool. Wow.
So to finish off, my lasting memory of yesterday, finish the final, absolute elation, sit down with Barry and Tabletop 24 and do an interview. All done, finished. And then I look at my watch, I look at my phone, and I'm like, there's a train in 35 minutes that can get me home. And with all of the issues I'd had getting there, I didn't want more train hassle. I then double checked to see when the train after that would be, and it had been cancelled. So the one in 35 minutes was the last train. And it takes 30 minutes to get from Manuscrew to Kettering train station. So I was like, Hamish, we need to go now. He's like having a chat around about something. Hamish has disappeared. I'm like, Hamish, we need to go now. So he's like, okay, we'll jump in the car, say goodbye to everyone, jump in the car, and then we just stick some incredible metal on.
I wouldn't say metal. I wouldn't say metal. I would say the most brutal deathcore shit.
Yeah, okay.
I could dig up from my Spotify library.
It was just, when the music choice is just perfect, right?
Thank you.
And Hamish is there. He's more hyped than I am. I'm absolutely shattered. He's more hyped than I am. Just beeping his horn at random points during the journey, driving obviously within the speed limit. It was a safe trip home with absolute elation, and then I think at every single point I was. It was brutal.
Well, I'm glad you really enjoyed it. I gave you a crash course in the deathcore scene.
You did, and we got to Kettering train station with a couple of minutes to spare.
Yeah.
I almost, if Nottingham hadn't been the last stop on the train, I would have slept through my stop, and then I managed to get home at a reasonable time. But yeah, what a day! Hamish, my hype man, comes big again whenever he's available.
That's all right, because every time you're fucking about, I you siphon all my wins off me. I'm just I can't win a game to save my life.
Anyway. If you see us at more events, come and say hi. We love to chat. We love to talk about Flesh and Blood.
The last thing I want to leave on is
there's so much last things.
It's just this photo. I want everyone who's watching this
podcast. Not the last episode ever.
He's not seen the photo of Simon and Hamish in the car. It's on the Push the Point Twitter coming home from the tournament. Right. And have you ever seen a man look more tired than Simon in that photo?
That was the best version. I took 2 or 3 versions of that picture.
I know, I was just like, Simon,
check out Push the Point Twitter and check that picture out because it's funny as fuck.
Right, we are actually going. Peace out. Love you
guys. Bye.